Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with a video breaking down my top 10 episodes of this year in television. Alright, so this should be the third installment, either third or fourth, I don't know, I'm not sure yet, but my countdown videos. So far we have top 10 performances and top 5 episodes of the year. I'm not sure which order I'm going to upload these in, so, bear with me there. But anyways, so it's time to look back on the year, right, of television and kind of, categorize things, and I really enjoyed putting together these lists and looking back on some of these shows, because some of them were in the beginning of the year and I've kind of forgot about them until now, and looking back, and some of the best, best episodes, best shows, best performances, everything were at the beginning of the year for me, and so it's just really great to kind of reminisce on those things, for sure for me. But anyways, I love to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. This is such a wide open, kind of subjective list or topic that we do here. And I just love to hear your guys' thoughts and discuss with you guys. So yeah, if you have just one or two or three or however many you think of, you don't have to do a top 10, of course. But yeah, if you want to share a couple, that'd be awesome. Love to discuss with you guys. Or even if you agree or disagree with these on my list, we can definitely discuss that as well. And I'd love to do that with you guys for sure. And also, if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate that as well. So anyways, so I have 10 that I'm going to share here for my top episodes of the year, but I do have 3 honorable mentions that I want to get to before that list. But before that, I do want to add in one qualification to this list, and that is the majority of these episodes on this list are from week-to-week shows. And why this is because a lot of the new binge-watching shows, right, the binge kind of landscape of TV or environment that's been created from Netflix and others now, has really changed this and really devalued single episodes. And whereas, a week-to-week show, Breaking Bad, we'll find, we'll just suggest that one. A lot of those episodes, single episodes, stick out to you, right? And with a lot of the shows now on Netflix and others, like I said, some of the, they aren't really made for that. It's really, was this season good? Was the ending good, right? And the ending could include like 2 or 3 episodes of the season, right? And so a lot of these shows are really hard to categorize specific episodes, and for that reason, a lot of the majority of these is going to be week-to-week television shows that I watched this year. So I just want to get that out there. And also, of course, episodes from shows that I didn't watch this year will not be on here. So that's also why I love to hear your guys' thoughts, because shows like, The Boys, Mandalorian, Watchmen, His Dark Materials, some of these, big kind of notable shows. Game of Thrones also I didn't watch, so don't get on me too much for that one. But anyways, a lot of these I didn't watch, and that's why they won't be here. So that's, again, why I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that one. But with all that out of the way, let's get on my honorable mention. So my first honorable mention is actually a binge-watching show. Is going to be Stranger Things, Season 3, Episode 2, The Mallrats. And I know I'm going to probably be in the minority of this one, but I think this is one of, if not the best episode of the season for Stranger Things. And it doesn't seem like that, right? It's like Episode 2, the story's just getting going. But I feel like, at least from a writing standpoint, I think this is the best episode of the season in that aspect. First of all, just the way this shows, Episode 1 does it well too, but this one does it even better. It really shows the change in the dynamic between these characters as they're growing up. Things are changing, and I think that's really one of the main themes of this season, and this episode just tackled it so well in showing Elle and Mike's relationship and the difficulties that they're having, and, Elle dumps him and all that stuff goes on in this one, and because of that, her and Max get a little bit closer, and we see kind of the 2 girls kind of in this big group of boys, right? These 2 girls getting closer together, developing that relationship. They go to the mall shopping and all this stuff. And of course, you get a lot of 80s nostalgia in this one, which the show is obviously great at. And so, yeah, I really like this episode. And they just do a lot of stuff in this one, too, with all the creepy underlying little details that they're slowly planting in here. And on rewatch, I noticed a ton of foreshadowing in this episode for the finale. And obviously that could be because I've seen it already, but I have to say, A lot of stuff in this episode really set up a lot of the stuff that would be seen later in the season, and I felt like that was really great as well. So yeah, it was also one of the tighter episodes. I felt like every scene had a purpose, whereas later in the season I feel like they got a little carried away with the run times, especially that finale. I think it was way too long. But yeah, again, one of the better episodes definitely of the season. And definitely deserves to be on this list, or at least in this discussion, right? So, all right, number 2 of my honorable mentions is What We Do in the Shadows, Season 1, Episode 3, I believe, Werewolf Feud. This is the second best episode of the season to me for What We Do in the Shadows. Just a fantastic episode. If you've seen the movie, you kind of understand the kind of werewolf lore, and also that they add to it a little bit in this episode, which is fantastic. Just such a hilarious episode, and the concept that they go with here, and it could have been like too big, really, right? Like the whole mythology and the lore that they introduce in this one could have came off a little bit too exposition-y, or could have, the jokes wouldn't have landed quite as well because there's so much description and all this stuff. But they actually were able to give us enough while it still was hilarious in the way it played out because of the brevity, and it just, I don't know, it just was so sharp the way that they covered the werewolves. And I guess they make a couple mentions later in the season, but they don't really play an integral role in the rest of the season, at least in the main plot. And it just makes it all the much better that this episode in particular just focused on the werewolves, and then this feud happens at the end, and like the ending to this whole fight that the whole episode is building up to is hilarious, and it gets so funny and so lackluster, but it's just such a comedic beat that plays here, and it's just so funny. So What We Do in the Shadows, can't suggest that enough, and this episode is definitely one of the best for sure. All right. Number 3, then, my last honorable mention is True Detective Season 3, Episode 4, The Hour and the Day. I feel like this was the second best episode for True Detective this season. This one did a lot. It really changed the pacing, I thought, too. In this episode in particular, the first 3 leading up to this, the timelines were, it was, to be honest, a little bit of an issue for me, because the timelines broke up the pacing so much. Yes, there were great transitions between the timelines and really, making it kind of gel, I guess, but the pacing was really broken up. This episode is what really starts what they pretty much did in the rest of the season, and I'm not sure if this was purposeful or not. It's just the way it developed. But I just felt like the pacing was really fixed. The way that they did these timelines, they spent a little bit more time on them and really dove into the situations a little bit more. And then we went to the next one. And then we went to the next one. But if something big was playing out in one of them, they just kind of let it play out. And at this one, at the very end, I mean, something does play out. Something massive. And again, that kind of changes the stakes of things, too, and really gets us going into this kind of fast-paced tailspin that we go in pretty much until the finale. So a really great episode here. Again, some of the best acting of this year in TV from Mahershala Ali, Stephen Dorff, and even if you want to include Scoot McNairy in his supporting role, Carmen Iago definitely deserves a mention as well. Great acting, and in this episode I felt like, again, some of the best acting for sure of the season. So anyways, those are my honorable mentions. Now let's get into my top 10. Alright, so to start this list off at number 10, we have Mindhunter, Season 2, Episode 5, titled Episode 5. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a title, but anyways, regardless, this is the best episode of Mindhunter Season 2 for me. It's also the last episode where the season, or before the season went kind of in this downward spiral for me. The last half of this season really damaged it, and if you take a look at my top 5 shows of the year, I talk a little bit more about that. But anyways, this episode was fantastic. I think the longest runtime out of any of the seasons, and deservedly so. Of course, this is the Charles Manson episode. They really jam-packed this one. They have Charles Manson, they have Edmund Kemper returning with Cameron Britton, which I wasn't actually a huge fan of. I felt like it was more of a fan service than a needed scene in the episode, but still. Cameron Britton, fantastic acting in this scene, and Jonathan Groff, McCallany, of course, awesome, kind of bouncing off of him. Great. So Charles Manson, and then we also get Tex Watson here, which was a surprise to a lot of us viewers. That wasn't really, that we didn't know that was going to happen. And so for them to do that after the Manson interview in this episode all together was a lot. And of course, we get a lot of development with Bill and Bill's son, right? Bill's son in this one, and Nancy reacting to the son, and all this situation kind of developing, really, really getting going at this point in this episode. So that was also great. And I believe this is the one with Wendy where her relationship also gets going. So this episode, again, really jam-packed, a lot of stuff in this one. But the Manson one, obviously the highlight, and that's what a lot of people were even just looking forward to going into the season. They're like, when is the Manson interview? And that's ever since the start of the show, people have been looking forward to that. And let me tell you, it pays off. It really does pay off. Damon Harriman is fantastic. Take a look at my top 10 performances of the year video. You'll see what I thought of it there. He was fantastic in that role. Awesome stuff. Of course, it's a very short, role for him, but it's actually quite a long scene. It's about 20 minutes of the episode, and it's fantastic. So, anyways, number 10, Mindhunter Season 2, Episode 5. Alright, so next on my list at number 9 is Fosse Verdon, Season 1, Episode 1, This is Cabaret. And it's a limited series, so I guess it's just Episode 1. But regardless, this is a really fantastic episode. I feel like it's the best of the series for Fosse Verdon. One of the best TV shows of the year. Again, watch my top 5. You'll see my thoughts on it. But a really great episode. I feel like the beginning and the end, such a great parallel there. I feel like this was the best written episode. I feel like the series actually suffers from a little bit of a pacing issue midway through. The finale really lands for sure. Don't get me wrong. But a little bit in between. But this episode is just the most, complete, well thought out, I just feel like the writing was just the sharpest in this episode, and the acting here for Sam Rockwell, Michelle Williams, I think they do get a little bit better than this as the series goes on, for sure, particularly in episode 8, for sure. You could talk about that one, but the acting here is just phenomenal. I mean, really, there's a lot of great scenes in this one from Sam Rockwell and Michelle Williams that are just like heartbreaking, also a little comedic, also showing off their talents, dancing, singing wise, respectively. So just a really, really great episode, just really well surrounded. The cinematography is really great for this, really sets the mood, the color palette, the visuals, the way this is filmed. It's just fantastic. The direction also deserves a nod for sure for this episode. And the musical numbers, the choreography, which is kind of meta because they're actively choreographing the scenes in the show. It's it's kind of difficult, but anyways, just the musical numbers that they actually do in the show are really awesome, and the performances, the singing is just fantastic. So anyways, with all that being said, I believe this episode is definitely one of the best of the year, and I had to throw an episode on here. I just felt like the finale is great, but I just thought this was a little bit better. But for sure, the finale definitely deserves a mention here for sure as well. I got recognized at the Emmys as well, and deservedly so. So anyways, that is number 9 on my list. Alright, so next on my list at number 8, we have Succession Season 2, Episode 3, titled Hunting. This episode was probably the most detached episode, I would say, of the season. This was kind of a bottle episode, if you will. That term has kind of been thrown around a lot, at least in The Walking Dead. That's kind of where I heard it first. But this is a fantastic episode. Some great scenes with Matthew McFadden and Nicholas Braun, kind of rekindling that dynamic duo that was so great in Season 1. And we also see Roman and Kendall's relationship kind of going, a little bit farther in this one, and really seeing the consequences of that for sure. So, yeah, just a really great, and then, of course, the scene, which is one of my favorites of the year, both comedically and dramatically, is the boar on the floor scene. If you've seen it, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. Fantastic scene, both comedic and really kind of heartbreaking as well towards the end. And Brian Cox definitely part of the reason why that scene works so well, along with the other actors in that one. But anyways, yeah, one of the better episodes of Succession this year. I've heard some people say it was their favorite. Probably not my favorite, of course, but I think it definitely is one of the better ones, and just really great. And also the setting, too, the camera work in this one really lends itself well to the setting and the sets that they're actually on. Particularly hunting really is the title for it. They actually go hunting, and so when they go hunting, the camera work here throughout the season lends itself so well to this, where they can zoom in, zoom out, and all this kind of stuff, kind of walk around the characters as they're just talking in the middle of this field, out of nowhere. Just fantastic stuff in this episode. So anyways, that is number 8 on my list. Alright, so next is number 7, which is What We Do in the Shadows, Season 1, Episode 7, The Trial. This was the best episode of What We Do in the Shadows, hands down. The amount of cameos in this one, the amount of just, like, references, like, other movie references to vampire stuff. We just had everything in this episode. And not to mention that the story actually still works. And that is some of the most impressive thing to me, is that they started this episode out with a story that, of course, very condensed stories within these, half-an-hour comedies. But it was a very specific story about a trial for them killing the Baron, right? And the whole thing that plays out just before this. And they were able, even with all these cameos and what you would think would be all these distractions, which of course added to the episode, right? But they still kept with the story, and these characters are still the same as they are, and the performances here were just fantastic. We even have Wesley Snipes calling on a Skype call. Like, it's just so fantastic, and they actually went kind of meta here as well. I believe Taika Waititi was one of the trial members here in the episode, if I recall correctly, right? But anyways, they went meta here, and it really paid off. So this episode is obviously one of the most memorable, for sure, of the year for me, and one of the best. Some of the most laughs I had, for sure, of the year in this episode. Just so impressive what they were able to do with this one. And then, having Mark Proksch be part of the trial, and the way he rescues them at the end. If you've seen it, you've seen it, right? Like, it's just so fantastic and so hilarious throughout. Definitely the best episode of the season for me, and definitely deservedly on this list at number 7. Alright, so next on my list at number 6, we have Killing Eve, Season 2, Episode 3, The Hungry Caterpillar. First of all, the title is perfect, and the actual scene where they say the line, the Hungry Caterpillar, is, I think, one of the better scenes of the entire series so far, at least in describing what kind of the underlying themes of the whole series are, and especially for Villanelle's character played by Jodie Comer, which, by the way, her performance definitely in the top 10 performances video, so take a look at that if you haven't already. But just an awesome episode, really jam-packed. They had a ton of stuff in here. We have the first kind of Eve and Villanelle confrontation, if you will, because Eve doesn't really know she's there, but Villanelle does. It's a very odd situation, and of course we get one of the best Villanelle disguises so far, at least in my opinion, in the series. So awesome, and a lot of good laughs in this one too. The comedy really, really landed, which I can't say for every episode. So yeah, the writing definitely sharp in this one. The acting from Jodie Comer, some of the best of the season for sure. Sandra Oh was even great, and her kind of relationship with her husband here, the big school meeting, that's kind of the focus of this one, and the way she reacts to everything, setting off the alarm when she sees this apple because, she's freaking out about Villanelle. And again, we see the dynamic between these two characters just fantastically played out in this one. I also feel like this was the last episode before, like, episode 6, where we actually got, like, a lot of stuff happening. A lot of the other episodes were just a build up, but this one really was a good payoff for the first couple episodes that were really quite slow. So yeah, really, really great episode. Definitely one of the best of the year, and probably the second best, I would say, for this season of Killing Eve. I felt like the most like season 1, the most impressive, the most well-rounded episode or at least one of the season for Killing Eve. So definitely at number 6 on this list. All right, so next at number 5, we're now into the top 5. We have True Detective Season 3, Episode 7, The Final Country. This one, I felt like, because of the disappointment I felt of the finale of True Detective and how kind of lackluster it was, this to me was basically the in facto finale, because a lot of the stuff in the actual finale, if you kind of are able to disregard that, this episode is fantastic. And the stuff it sets up, and even the ending, obviously I wouldn't have been satisfied with it, but it could have worked as a series finale, really. Just a really great episode all the way around. We have a lot of great dynamics here with Roland and Wayne. Just fantastic stuff. And again, a lot of the stuff building up to these moments, and that's why it makes it even, better, as these scenes in here. And yeah, again, I feel like for a lot of these episodes I'm saying this, but just the most well-rounded, sharply written. A lot of these things I'm saying over and over again, but it's true. These episodes just really stand out because of the writing particularly, but again, the performances in this one are really, really great. And also the timelines here, because now we get a little bit, they kind of disregard the 80s at this point, because now it's, more or less become kind of useless to solving the case currently. And now they focus more on the 2015 timeline or the 90s. And I feel like when they do that, I think that kind of starts in episode 6. When they did that, I felt like the show benefited because I think the pacing really picked up, really improved here. And it kind of throws us into this tailspin right for the rest of the season here in the last few episodes, and just really fantastic stuff. So anyways, this episode definitely deservedly in the top 5 in this list. One of the best of the year. And obviously the direction, cinematography, that goes without saying. Some of the best of the year for sure was in True Detective, season 3. And it was fantastic in this episode as well. So really great stuff there from True Detective season 3, episode 7. All right, so at number 4, we have Succession, Season 2, Episode 4, Safe Room. This was the second best episode, I think, of the season for Succession. Such a hilarious episode, but also a really dramatic one. They take a situation here, and of course, this is not the entire episode, but the situation is kind of the main focal point of it, where they have an active shooter in the building, or at least they think it is. Of course, it turns out that it is someone who in their office committed suicide by shooting themselves. But this huge drill breaks out. The whole building is locked down because of this active shooter that they think is in the building. And they're trying to find them and all this stuff. And of course, this is amid all these protests. So they think some Antifa person got in. And again, really great contemporary stuff here because this is really real. Like a lot of this stuff and a lot of the comedy that spurs from this situation is real. Like these are the real reactions to these things from these characters. And it's just fantastic the way that they take this, otherwise kind of terrifying situation and turn it hilarious, but also dramatic because literally they say safe room. It locks these characters in safe rooms, and in particular, Greg and Tom. It just kind of brings out the best of them, I guess, both in their performances and the way their characters react to one another, and really just having these characters in the room with each other for an hour at a time really just breaks out all the feelings that they had for each other and everything, and just makes them go head to head, right? They just butt heads, and it's just a really awesome sequence in this one. Again, that's not the whole episode. We have some really great stuff from Roman as well at the parks and what he's doing there. Hilarious stuff. Kieran Culkin, fantastic as well in this one. But yeah, just a fantastic episode again. Somewhat of a bottle episode, but we do get a lot of negotiation here with them acquiring the other company and all that stuff going on there as well. And that plays a big part as they're locked in that bunker, that safe room, and that brings out a lot of that as well. But anyways, that is number 4 of this list, top 10 episodes. All right, so at number 3, we have Killing Eve, Season 2, Episode 8, You're Mine. This was a fantastic finale, really, really doing a great job at pretty much summarizing and encapsulating everything that happened in the season and bringing it to a grinding halt, literally, with this cliffhanger at the very end. Very similar to Season 1, but if you get beyond that, right, if you get beyond that kind of similarity or kind of copycat nature of it, it's fantastic, and the acting here just insane. Jodie Comer and Sandra Oh both, but particularly Jodie Comer. I gotta highlight her because she does a fantastic job throughout this entire episode. And the way that this goes down with of course the other psychopath guy that they have, and Villanelle takes care of him really early on, and so you're kind of left to believe, well, what's next, right? What's next? That's pretty much what we were all waiting for. And then we get the scene with the showdown between Villanelle and her handler, which is so satisfying. That's something that I didn't know was going to be there, but I'm like, okay, awesome. That's something I kind of expected to be in season 3. And so again, a lot of stuff happening in this one. And then the very end, her and Eve go off on the run together. She asks her, okay, well, like, let's go to a place, in South America or something like that, and we'll just hang out, we'll live together or something. And then Eve snaps out of it. And that scene, again, to end it with that cliffhanger, is just marvelous. And really, again, encompasses everything, the entire season. Eve getting closer and closer and closer to Villanelle, realizing that she's getting closer, but not really caring, not really realizing the seriousness of this. And all the characters around her trying to tell her this. But then also on Villanelle's side, characters are trying to tell her, Eve doesn't want you. Eve doesn't want you. All this stuff. And then it kind of comes to it all comes to a head here in the final scene, where that's exactly what plays out between the two. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I may have already. Anyways, whatever. It's a big cliffhanger at the end of the season, and it's fantastic. So, anyways, that is number 3 for this year. All right, so down to the final 2 now. So, number 2, we have Chernobyl, episode 1, 123:45. I believe this episode is, at least from a direction, cinematography standpoint, and I'd throw in writing, this is probably the best episode of the year in television. It's theatric, really. I mean, this is the closest probably to a movie that we got this year for sure. HBO putting a lot of money into this for sure, and you can see it pay off. The quality of this is just insane. And the writing really lets things breathe. Once you get past about the 10-minute mark here, it's literally just witnessing what happened. And following these characters that you wouldn't usually follow in a story like this, in a dramatization. You're following the everyday people, the neighbors, the firefighter, the doctors, right? The plant engineers themselves. And you're following these people that you have no idea about. Like, you don't know these characters, you have sympathy for them quite yet, because they haven't even developed them at all. But it's literally just showing us what happened. And the way it plays out, again, the direction is one of the best reasons why this works so well, because it's fantastic. And the cinematography, the visuals here, the color palette, insane in this episode for sure. And I feel like this is the strongest episode of the season. I feel like a lot of people have been saying the finale, they love it, it was awesome, a great ending. I don't feel the same way. I just really didn't like that finale. I felt like it was kind of damaged the season to me, to be perfectly honest with you. This episode, though, again, one of the best TV, episodes of TV this year, hands down, really great. And the acting in this, too, I mean, it's not going to get a lot of praise because, again, these are characters in very small roles, but in the roles that they played, fantastic. Adam Negatis, I believe that's how you say his name, fantastic in his role as the firefighter. Again, a very limited role with probably like 5 lines of dialogue. He's fantastic in it, though, just phenomenal in showcasing this such an average perspective to something, but also really emotional. And again, we don't even know this character, so it's just awesome stuff here. And then also, of course, the plant engineers deserve a lot of recognition as well. I forget some of their names, but some of the actors did a really great job there as well. So yeah, Chernobyl episode 1, I guess, definitely one of the best of the year for sure. Alright, so everything has come down to this. We're now at number 1. It is going to be Succession, Season 2, Episode 10, This Is Not for Tears. If you watched Succession, you probably had a feeling that this one was coming. This finale was fantastic, and I thought after Season 1, I'm like, okay, I don't know if that finale can be topped. I mean, that was a crazy kind of left field curveball finale where we did not expect it, but hell was it one hell of an episode. And then it gets recognition at the Emmys for best writing, and it's like, what? Right? So, anyway, which was awesome. I'm not saying it, that it didn't deserve it, obviously, but, that was a really surprising one. This one, even more surprising. I expected something good, but this was just great. I mean, again, the parallel ending to this one with episode 1 and this one, so similar, but so different, and the whole journey for Kendall in this season all comes to a head at this very point, and his relationship with Logan as well. And just some fantastic scenes in this one. Some of the best acting as well by these cast members in this one for sure. Matthew McFadden, definitely one of the top ones to mention. Jeremy Strong, obviously. Brian Cox. Kieran Culkin was good in this one. A little bit of a smaller role. Sarah Snook was great. Just like Alan Ruck even was fantastic. So just an awesome episode. Really encompassing everything that we've come to in the throughout the season. finally breaking down to this one episode. It is a little bit long, and to be fair, I think it's a little bit too long. But other than that, I really like this is a perfect episode. And one other thing didn't get resolved, which was a very minor plot line, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with that carrying into next season. But honestly, just a fantastic episode all the way around here. And the camera work, again, really lending itself well with them being on the cruise. Again, the settings, the sets that they're on play a large part in these episodes. And again, this one was fantastic. Like I said, just awesome stuff. And the ending is one of the better endings that I've seen to a show, or to a season of a show, in a long time. Really fantastic. So I can't wait for season 3 of Succession. It is definitely my most anticipated, maybe next Better Call Saul, I guess, for next year. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be awesome. But season 2 episode 10, definitely the best episode of the season for Succession, really stands out. And it is my #1 episode of the year in TV. Alright, so that'll just about do it for my thoughts on my top 10 episodes of the year. So 13 that I named there, so 3 honorable mentions, and then the top 10 there. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on any or all of my picks, and then if you want to share some of your picks, I'd just love to discuss with you guys on this one. And again, I know it's hard to find episodes in particular because so many shows are binge-watched now. It's just difficult to pinpoint, but if you can think of some, love to hear those, and definitely jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on those. Really like to discuss with you guys and look back on the year. Awesome stuff. So anyways, guys, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on this year. Really looking forward to 2020 now. You know, a lot of great shows on already scheduled now that I'm really looking forward to. Of course, #1 being Better Call Saul. But yeah, so a couple other videos, of course, that should be out by now is my top 5 TV shows of the year and also my top 10 performances. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on those, so if you can check those out if you haven't already, I love that as well. It'd be really awesome. Really appreciate that. And then also, please stay tuned for my year-end awards, my second annual awards that I'll be running here on the channel, and that'll probably be early January, if not in the next couple days. And I'd love you guys I'd love for you guys to check that one out as well. Really looking forward to putting that together as well. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching this video, and we'll see you in my next video.
You'll never get a second chance. Plan all your moves in advance. Stay dead, stay dead, stay dead, stay dead and out of this world.